efficiencies from metering and whatnot. But these issues are real, and they're community issues. They're not engineering issues.
John, I see your hand up. Just want to go to the people who haven't asked the question yet. Brenda?
I missed the beginning of the presentation, but I take it that your calculations are based on a certain population for Bowen. And I know in the OCP, or dealing with the OCP, I've heard the number of 7,500 people bandied about. And with the increased development that we've got in Cove, I'm wondering how you manage development on the rest of the island to stay within that number. I mean, what do you say to people who own land now and want to develop it? And with this increased density, does that mean that you're going to say to some of those people, no, you can't subdivide your land and develop your land? How are we going to keep our population within those parameters that I thought the OCP was based on?
So again, I'll premise this with the fact that we weren't mandated with looking at the rest of the island, but obviously we had to engage in this conversation somewhat. The proposed amount of people that we have going in here, it would be a little over half of what would be allowed under the OCP. So you're right, there would be in excess of that that could be allowed on other sites. This is a very tricky question. From a sustainability point of view, as a community, I think we're going to have to take a very firm position on this pretty soon. And I'll step out of my planning hat for a minute and my resident hat. I would suggest that we need to slow and perhaps stop development outside the Cove. If we're serious about sustainability and maintaining the type of island that we've all come here for, that would be my argument. Putting the planning hat back on, you know, over time we have to look at those numbers and first of all see if they're real numbers. You know, I mean, just because the OCP says that, that doesn't mean anything. The down zoning of lands is something that is possible. You have to do that carefully as a planning organization for a city. It's a very delicate task. It's not impossible. I would argue that, and some of the working groups, this is probably the key point, some of the working groups are trying to figure a way to do this. There does exist density transfers in existing regulations today, and if we can enhance those and create enough land value in the Cove, some of that may become quite attractive for landowners elsewhere to be able to transfer that density to the Cove.
Yes?
No, not directly relevant, but I'm very impressed with what you've said, with the depth of knowledge and the depth that you've gone into the general relationship of Snow Cove and the island. But it's a simple question, and you can always say you're not going to answer it anyway. But it bears on the scheduling of this whole development. There is right now a developer's proposal in for, I'll mention the word I suppose, Cape Roger Curtis, which asks for 250 dwellings pretty quickly and as much as 1,000 straight in forwards into the mists of time. Can you see any benefit this would bring to the island? And they want to do it quickly. And they also specifically mention having a sort of second centre up that end of the island. It bears on Snug Cove and speed. Can you see any benefit to that idea?
I was hoping this question wouldn't be asked. And with due respect to my friend Mark, it's probably something I shouldn't answer in a public situation. I'd be happy to answer that personally for you. I can say that our presentation clearly didn't show another node somewhere else, certainly not a commercial node. I think that I can say that the energy that from a commercial and economic point of view needs to go here first. We need to have a walking environment first before we consider creating something that you have to drive to or transport yourself to. So from a purely commercial point of view, the Cove should be the destination for that.
Thank you.
John?
Just
Well, 2 points. One, I want to say that I agree 100% with everything Eric Sherlock said about the loop road and its significance in revolving. And everything. The other point is more general. Many people have got up and referred to this plan as marvelous and wonderful and so on, and I have to say that I may be the only person in the room that doesn't think that, but I don't think it. I certainly don't think that a lot of talented people such as are up front could have created a plan like this without a lot of very good things, and I saw a lot of very good things in it. I saw a lot of other things that might be very good things if in fact they worked. I'm very, very skeptical about a number of the premises that are here. And, you know, the idea about people walking, you know, how many people, well, I can't ask a question about the crowd, but you might ask, I'll bet you can count the number of people who walked here tonight on one hand. I'm one of them. I ask that question usually. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So, but anyway, I don't want to go into a whole critique, and I'm very skeptical about the greenhouse gas numbers. Most fundamentally, this is a wholesale change in the approach to planning on the island from the OCP that's been going on since the early 1970s. And it has to interface with two things. One is the rest of the island. I mean, to say, well, we didn't have a mandate, that's fair enough for Alan to say that, and anyone else on the team to say, well, we didn't have a mandate to look at that. But council sure got to look at that. And to put this, to say, well, this will work, and then we'll deal with the rest of the island, with all due respect to council, I haven't seen this council, or the last council, or any council since we've had a municipality, say no to any substantial proposal for development. And the idea that you're going to adopt this plan, either formally or informally, and then say, by the way, guys, you're out of luck, is nil. Do it first, then adopt the plan, and you might even find me coming and say, hey, good idea. But I don't think you will, and I think you've got to look at that. And I think if you're going to do something as drastic as this urbanization, you've got to look at how it interacts with the rest of the island, and you've got to do a community plan review. The other thing is you ought to be looking at the interface with regional planning. Since 1970, we've had the GVRD's regional planning, which says this is not to be an urban area. We've had the Islands Trust Act, which says this is not to be an urban area, but we're proposing an urban area. And the 1,500 new people that move in here will only be about 100 of them from Bowen Island, 1,400 from the mainland, switching over here. And it's very interesting to be on the same side of an issue as Bud Long for the first time. Anyway, I'll sit down, but this is a lot bigger than simply looking at Snug Cove and 11 restrictions.
So, Bruce and behind you, Eric, I'm just going to people who haven't spoken yet, but I see your hand up for a second. That's coming up. So Bruce.
Well, I've been driving the bus here on Bowen for the last 2 years. Incidentally, I only see 2 people in this room that use it. And in a plan of this nature, I mean, does it not involve some kind of change in the attitude of the people who are using the cars themselves outside of this? And I haven't heard any of that addressed, but I realize that it's not there. As far as the marshalling goes, I witnessed the marshalling 5 days a week for the last 2 years, and I don't really see too much of a problem with the marshalling on the main road. What I see a problem with is people dropping people off. That's, you know, getting foot passengers. And the bus has just gone past their house in the last minute and a half. I don't exaggerate. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. So I've heard a lot of good stuff here tonight, but I haven't heard any plan for the attitude that satellites this program for the change in that. You know, you've got a psychodemographic population here that relies on a car, and it's their God-given right to have it. So with the population increase, I don't see how all these cars are going to fit in here. Taking up park spaces in one of the plans, you know.
So, 2 points there. The first being the psychological shift. I mean, you're absolutely correct. That needs to take place. And I do know, for instance, the sustainability working or framework working group is looking